Hi, I'm DarleneCarman.
And I'm Doug Carman.
Welcome to the show. KublaCon is the West Coast's largest game convention, a place where people of all ages and all levels of skills come together to play games like board tabletop styles, coffee table, collectible card games, and a variety of role-playing games. The Memorial Day weekend event has seminars on all aspects of gaming, from history to design. Executive producer and founder Jobchi Kalsa and social media specialist E. Ambres de Colosio are here to tell us more about the activities and to demonstrate some of the games. Hi.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thanks
to the
for bringing us on the show.
Yes.
Good to be here.
Now, you actually have another position at the convention. You're like a reporter, Kubla Kent. You're also known as Kubla Kent.
Kubla Kent, yes, our mild-mannered con reporter. Yeah, they just kind of created the little name a couple years ago when we first decided to have a little live reporter roving around. So it kind of just, you know, report on the con and show the different features and show them live on our Facebook page.
Do you actually dress up? You play the part?
I do sometimes do a little bit. I have a couple little Kubla Kent glasses I'll throw on there and put sometimes a little Superman shirt on there and kind of go have some fun with it. Do a mild
cape?
cosplay. No cape.
Well, in our previous conversation, we talked about how the games have just exploded, the interest in them. And do you have any idea what is causing that to happen?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it. I mean, a lot of us, and you perhaps as a young person, used to play games, board games, Monopoly, these kind of things, and at some point you maybe lost interest. And I think one of the reasons that we're seeing this sort of huge influx of popularity of games is that the style of them has changed quite a lot and in a way that they've become more interesting and more engaging. You don't, you know, they're more replayable. Like, you know, you could play Monopoly 5 or 6 times with your sister, and every time she beat you, you're like, I'm never playing that game again, right? And I think, you know, this really started probably about 15, 20 years ago with the European board game invasion. Is that about right, time-wise?
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
And,
In
and the
Germany,
Europeans
very big,
did this because it's hard to explain why they did it, but they had games that you could sit down at a table with your family. And the Europeans loved to play games. And they were not competitive. They were not, I'm going to crush you. And they weren't always just based on luck. You know, like a lot of the games you might have played were just roll some dice and it was only luck. And these involved some strategies, some negotiation sometimes. And so they started this invasion of European games that came to the United States. And since then, there are many, many great American companies and European companies that have come here, and it's pretty prevalent all across the board now.
I also think one thing that happened, I think we moved away from like a lot of being social in person and got very technologically focused. And I think all of a sudden people were craving to unplug and find a way to really just be with each other. And then I think a little bit when we hit our recession, you know, several years ago, that helped kind of bring games in because all of a sudden games were replayable and they were sustainable versus like video games or movies. You go see a movie, you don't see it again. You play a video game, kids want a new one, a new one, a new one. Now as family or friends, you buy a board game and it's over and you're like, let's do this again, or let's meet up tomorrow or next week. And so that's what created also, I think, this new interest in board games was also the sustainability and the idea to unplug and be with each other and socialize.
And I think to riff off that just a little bit, the other thing that happens is a lot of these games, because of their mild complexity, become great teaching tools for parents. And it's the kind of thing where you can sit at a table with your 4, 5, 6, 8, 10-year-old, and the whole family can play together. And my son, when he first started playing Magic the Gathering, he couldn't read. He was 4 years old, but he could recognize the pictures on the cards and remember what those did. And in the course of that, he learned how to learn math. He learned some social skills, what it means to sit at a table with other adults or other kids his size. And so I think part of that is that people in, you know, the generation that wants to do something with their children or themselves and just step away from the computer screen or TV screen and engage other people in a social situation. It's huge. I think it's big.
Yeah, you touched on this a little bit about and I wanted to question, what types of games are fueling this interest? So you're saying more interactive games with each other rather than interacting with a video screen or something. So is that what you're trying to say, that this interest in board games and that are out on an upswing because people want to get back to interacting with each other?
Absolutely.
Is that?
Yeah, I think the like Josh, you mentioned, there's so many new types of games now. Like the Europeans kind of showed us that there's a new way to look at gaming. Because we're talking about families, but it's not just for kids anymore. It's not just for families. There's a lot of games that are even geared towards adults. You know, there's even more heavier subject matter that they'll deal with. There's a game called War of Mine that deals with post-apocalyptic Los Angeles and dealing with that stuff. But then there's games like Hey, That's My Fish, where penguins are trying to eat their fish, you know, trying to catch fish with the family. So so there's so many different games. We got a couple here that we'd love to show you. These here. Talk about interesting games. These two games here, they are actually what they call out of print. And these games actually right here were sold for probably about $20 originally. Now people want these games so much, they'll pay up to $80 to $100 for these games.
When did that game first come out?
This came out probably about 2002, 2003.
Oh.
Yeah, and my daughter and son and I used to play it. We love this game.
So there's this interest that's huge. But then there's also games that were so beloved that because of interest, they got remade. And that's like this game here, Stop Thief. This was actually originally, it says it on the cover here, 1979. This game originally came out.
Wow.
But the gaming industry has become so popular that this company went and remade this game and made it more modern and made it more advanced, and now people are rebuying old games and bringing them into our modern times. So that's what's really great about the gaming industry. Did
they know that it was an old game? Is that advertised on there?
Yeah. It's this company, they had a connection with someone like Hasbro and Mattel and stuff, so they went and found which are the games that families used to love and would love to see it again. So like we're talking about all the different types of games, and there's themes, I mean, everything, pirates, westerns, monsters, I mean, you name it, it's out there. Old War, Civil War, future, you know, all the movie stuff's out there. There's Avenger games and there's Marvel games and DC games. So it's out there. If you're interested in something, I guarantee you that we could find a game that you're gonna like, whatever you're interested in. Know how to ask you.
And Doug, you go ahead. Yeah.
Well, you have categories for different for children, different categories. Is that what you're saying, that you have different ones for different, or is for grade level, for age, and then into adult, or is it all hormonal?
At our convention, we actually, and kind of you touch on a couple of different things with that question. You talked about categories. He was sort of talking themes. Yeah. But there are also are categories, you know, of types of games. And you kind of just used the words, and I'm not sure everybody understood them. There's role-playing games, which might be like Dungeons and Dragons. There's tabletop games, which would be, well, these games, Lord of the Rings, Stop Thief is a tabletop game.
Okay. That's what
and then there's collectible card games, and that's a whole nother genre of games. And what's kind of beautiful about that is that different people can key into what they like best. There's so many different themes and so many different styles of play. You know, some games might have more luck in them. Some games might have zero luck. It's all about your strategies, you know. And
some are even dexterity games, where you actually have to move pieces, like flicking them or tossing them, and it's like it's a game, but you actually got to use your hands and work.
So they're learning things, and they don't really. I'm learning something new.
There's a tactile element to that, rather than just with the thumbs, you're actually feeling pieces and moving pieces.
And back to your question, the convention, we do have different areas for those different things. So you said we have a young player's room. We're very family friendly, so you can come with your children.
So that's like elementary level, right?
Yeah, elementary to about what, 10 or so, or maybe 12?
I think it's like elementary to 10 or 12.
Yeah, and then we have a teen room, right?
And then the teen room steps up from there. And there's always the preteens and the teens, which goes to which, but we have a teen room, which is separate needs.
And it's probably hard to get them to keep them where they belong, right? I bet the kids, you know, hop from this one to that one.
Well, it's true, but a lot of times they're so interested in investing in the games, and our staff is so there with them that they just, a lot of times they stay in their room and they're telling the parents, hey, go, it's okay, we're good here. You go play your games.
Yeah.
And they don't leave. You know,
belong.
they're just so engrossed in the different types of gaming that's out there. So it's really works really well.
And we encourage adults to play with the teens, especially the teens in general. So we have a way of listing our games in our schedule so that you could say, well, this is a teen-only game because we only want teens to play it themselves, or teen-friendly, which means that if the person who's running that game says, I'm happy to have teenagers at my game because I don't mind that their energy is a little more frenetic, but I can keep them, you know, I can teach them the game and learn how to play it. So we try to really let them sort of choose what they want to do in terms of a style or complexity and go from there.
Well, what's nice about this convention is I saw you had a library. So if you don't have your own game, you can try out something and you just check it out.
Yes.
And you have a large library, I understand.
I believe it's over 700 games now.
It's a lot of racks.
The beautiful part for me is that I get to buy games and play them once and then put them in the library. And say, you know, like this was, I mean, it's a great thing.
Write it off as a business.
Write it off,
business
Not a write-off, it's a legitimate business expense.
It is,
It does go in the library.
And then beyond the library, though, I really want to make a great point about the convention, because I remember the first time I went, I was not a staff member when I first went. The great thing is you got the library, you can check out a game for free that comes with you, when you become part of the convention, you can check out for free. But then there are so many people with their own games that are looking for players. We have this great system that came about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. We have these little flags that people put on their table. The flag's up, that's telling you, hey, we're looking to play. We're looking for new players. So you can go there, be just you and your friend, and go play games with other people, meet other people, and then you ask them, hey, are you willing to teach? More often than not, they're, yeah, we'll teach you. So even if it's not at the library, you can just find a table with friends and learn to play their games that they brought on from home. So that's what's really great about the convention.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have that, and then I'm always interested in painting, and you have a painting person that's there that runs something that has contest,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
We have an amazing painting program. It's run by, again, one of our guys named Wayne Rogers, and he's been with us for forever. And he's a really good painter himself. But we run these sessions of miniature painting. So some of them are speed paintings, some are just, you know, learn to paint.
Right.
And you can sit down at the table and they teach you and they give you brushes and paints and you can paint figures much like this. Okay, so these are some figures from this board game, as it turns out. And they're not painted. But these might be the kind of thing that you could do a simple paint job on, and there might be a seminar on how to do a simple wash on some of your figures.
Right.
There might be seminars on how to paint green monsters. We have a lot of different seminars around the same thing.
They get really intricate. I mean, they look so realistic. Like, one thing I want to point out, that there used to be a thing called miniatures, like that was one gaming, and then the board gaming. Well, they've combined in the recent years. So that's what this game is Blood Rage, is combines miniatures with the board gaming. So these miniatures have now have advanced to a different level because there's a big market for them. So the people that want to play games and paint miniatures, they get both in one. So these miniatures get painted so beautifully. I was telling you earlier, a friend of mine, his friend actually paints miniatures for George R.R. Martin from Game of Thrones. And he paints those miniatures, and they use those miniatures to create scenes for what he's going to write. So it's become big. So when you come to the convention, you can learn how to paint and just bring that artistic skill to it. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's really time to move on and see some of these games, how they work.
Let's do it.
Well, hold on a second before we go. Doug,
Oh, yes.
you brought a game, did you not?
I'm really excited to be a part of this, as I got an opportunity the guys gave me to bring down a game and test market it. To see
We love that. You're going to come to the show and run your game and show it to people.
and see what kind of reaction there. It's so I'm just going to briefly describe what this game is.
Okay.
It might look a little strange, but what it is a visual perception game. It helps hone your visual perception. And I have 2 games in this one package, which is nice, because this is kind of an innovative package rather than a big box. So the board on the game comes with what I call, it's a tri-tac-toe. And then the other side, and multiple players can play this game. And on the other side is triaddle, and it's really for two players. And you can see here, it comes with the chips, both black and white, and they're numbered. And this is the tri-tac-toe. This is triaddle. The triaddle uses of course, the chips, and in addition to the visual perception that's required, you have to have sequential strategies in it. And what that means is the player must manage the playing sequence of his chip's value in order to maximize his scoring potential. So as I said, it's packaged really nice in a nice slim package, easy to store, easy to carry, and I'm really excited to see how it
Thank you for sharing that, Doug.
I'm glad. I love that you're bringing that.
We got to
up.
move on
That's
now.
Great.
And one of those uses a pin, eraser
Oh, the
pin,
dry erase?
marker.
Dry erase, yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, that's really cool because that's one thing we do at the convention. We allow new games to be shown. So it's really
Thank
nice.
you.
New designers, new games.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do here is show you guys a few different games. We have different styles. We're talking about different types of games. So this is a card game, very typical. A lot of people are used to playing with cards and playing cards and things like hearts and spades. Well, the gaming has gone beyond that, but just using
a lot of
cards as well.
familiarity with handling cards.
Exactly. So they're really cool. This is called Wonderland. Wonderland is actually what says this tabletop right here. This was actually an exclusive game on Saturday to the 28th of this month that you could only get that day. And it's International Tabletop Day. So it was a specific day for everyone to get together and play, different board game stores and such and that. And this one's based off the Alice in Wonderland theming. And I'll just give you a quick rundown. There's basically one person plays Queen of Hearts and the other person plays Alice in Wonderland. And what it is you're playing these cards down here one at a time. And eventually the grid will come up and there will be a grid now of all the cards that you played. And then what you do is you're going to add up your scores. But the cool thing is there's little cake on one side and little poison. So the cake doubles the one next to it and the poisons cancel out the other cards. So then whoever has the highest numbers in the rows captures the ones that are face down, but each of us don't know what the other person put down.
Right.
So you might actually be the
So you put them face down, then you have to turn them up.
So then you're like, so I don't know what I'm fighting for. So if you're Alice, and you're Alice, you might still get my card, the red card here. You might get the 3 or the 1 or here the 7. So we're fighting for these cards, but there's a bit of strategies like which ones do I put down to play against, but then which ones do I play using to try to capture the cards. And it's all just all a little deck of cards, and there's all that built into that one game. So it's really nice. And then these extra little cards here will change some of the rules. So you might not know how the rule's going to change. It might be like the highest card no longer applies, or you can flip 2 cards and stuff like that. So there's just a lot of game in a simple little deck. And then we're talking about how big the gaming has grown. It's grown too much so where there's a special day for us every year, and there's a special game that comes out every year for everyone to collect it. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, the other thing I love about this is if you look at these cards, they're beautiful.
They are.
And they have beautiful art on it, and it's a thing that the game publishers have really embraced, is making the games beautiful. And because when you play that game, you're not just putting a number 4 down to 2. You're feeling the theme, you're feeling the thought and the design that went into it based on the images.
Well, you have contests for game designs too, don't you?
We do have a contest for game design, and we mentioned collectible card games. Now,
Yes.
this is not a collectible card game, but I will say the game called Magic the Gathering, which came out a long time ago, the thing that caught my attention was to see it being played in the game store and see the artwork on it. And they were the first game to really put beautiful artwork on a card. And I said, I don't know how good that game is or how it's played, but I want to buy it because it's so beautiful.
I like the aesthetic.
And that's what I did.
The aesthetic value.
So this level is for adults and children?
Oh yeah, this is a simple enough level as long as you can add. And then again, even if you're younger and not sure with your math, it helps you do math because you're adding the rows and you're helping to subtract this one. And then what's great about games, a lot of times they have what the age groups are and how many people can play and what the level is.
Age level.
Yeah.
Now this game here looks really interesting.
Oh, I get to play this.
This is a classic board game, and I loved how you described it earlier in terms of how it's different than that.
Right. So this is what we call, like I said, a classic board game. In a classic board game, the board is actually a part of the game in a sense. So there's places on the board that matter, and then as well as the pieces that you're using, those are going to matter as well. So that's usually more like what the classic, typical board game is, that the board and the pieces are all one thing that going to interact with the game.
So this is actually one of my favorite games right now. I go through phases. And so what I love about this game is that this has an element of luck. And the way you can tell that simply is looking at there's dice all over the place. But I'm going to take a minute. We're going to dig in a little bit to this game. I'm going to try to get Doug to roll some dice and play a little bit. But the way this game is, this is a settling Mars, the planet game. And here's Mars right here. And these little areas around Mars are the outposts. And what these things are, these things that look like dice, they are not actually dice. They are spaceships.
Oh, yes.
And these are your spaceships. And you're going to be rolling your spaceships to accomplish different things and ultimately settle Mars.
Oh.
And you're going to be moving your pieces onto Mars. And we're sort of mid-game here, and we've already got some of these places settled. And you're going to get victory points depending on how you do this. Now,
So is this for 4 players? Because I noticed you have your...
this will play up to 4 players. There's another color that we don't have here. And with expansions, that's something a lot of these games do these days. You can even play a 5th player. You have to buy the expansion.
Nice.
And these are little colonies, if you can't tell. They're like a little, little colonies with a little bubble.
So when you...
So if you look closely, it's a little city in there.
So we're going to run through a round of turns. So the first thing you would do in this, without describing all the rules, the first thing, this is like mid-play, you're going to be red. You're going to collect all the red dice that are already on the board and put them in your hand. And now you're going to roll them, and we're going to see what happens.
Uh-oh.
So your spaceships are rolled. You have a 2,
I got
a
5,
3, and a 6.
So I got 11.
So what's cool about this is you look at those numbers, and there are different places where you play your numbers based on what they are.
Do I play from the total or depending?
So each one's its own number.
Oh, so each one is an individual. So each one represents how far they advance. then
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a biggie because I got a 6.
Well, and it's not always about how it advances, it's about where you can be played. So for example, a 6, if you play it over here in the terraforming station, is going to get you 3 of these things. So you would take your 6, say put it over here, and then this would go into your, you would have those 3 power. Now you have 2 more ships to do something with. And in this case, one ship might go down here. Let's say you're red, you got 2, and now you can move this guy forward. And with your 3, you could move him another space.
Yeah.
Now, that's getting closer to this end space where you can put him on the planet. But depending on the number, it will give you a choice of places you can place. And we don't have time to describe all the numbers. This is actually a place where if you had a straight, you could put your straight here and steal things from other people.
So it gets interactive because you can actually steal.
Oh, I like that element.
Yeah.
So this game, with the style of game is called worker placement.
Now
so you're
this
actually
board-
making pieces work for you.
Does this small board go with it?
This is your score track.
That's a score track.
Oh,
So
I see.
as you land here on the planet, you're going to be moving up on the score track.
I see.
So if you remember earlier, we were talking about how Europeans introduced games.
Yes.
They introduced worker placement as an idea. And Americans, we had a lot of dice rolling, right? Like Monopoly and stuff like that. So this merges the idea of a little bit of luck, dice rolling, which is always fun, but then
Yes.
worker placement, where the dice are the workers or the ships that are helping create your jobs and making things
And
happen for you.
how you utilize the
Exactly,
your ships.
exactly.
When did this game come out? Did you say? I didn't hear
This
it.
is 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
6 years,
About
and it's still in
2007,
print. It
2008.
was out of print for a while. Now it's available again,
and
and
it's popular.
it's-
So that's what games do. It's kind of like books, I guess.
It is
There's-
like books, and
and
sometimes
some
they
just-
go out.
There's a
and-
certain run, a certain quantity. Is that the way it
Right.
goes?
Yeah, what it is like a lot of times they'll print it, they're not sure how good it's going to go, and they're like, oh, well, this did really good, we'll print it again, but then the sales slow down. And then there's some games that just do so good that they're just always in print, and there's just multiple editions of it. They'll change the rules a little bit, make the pieces a little better, but they just never go out of print. So
That's kind of neat, though, because it's nice to have new games that we talked about, the whole influx of new games, but it's also nice to have standbys that people like and they want again
exactly.
and again.
Over and over.
And I think that means a lot, too. It's familiar
true.
to a lot of people.
Exactly.
Well, and there is this thing, and I can't remember if you mentioned at the beginning, but there's Kickstarter.
Oh.
Right? And
Yes.
and what that is we're going to make the game based on how many orders we get. And it is amazing how board games have really, in terms of all the Kickstarters there are, have been a really solid place to invest or find new games. Not all of them come to market because that's the nature of Kickstarter, but This was originally a Kickstarter
Oh,
game.
okay, cool.
Oh, was it?
Originally.
Oh.
And then it became popular, came out in print again.
So that's one way they gauge it. You know, if it gets, you know, if it raises $1 million, well, they know we'll print that out and then we'll print some more.
Wow. And this one here, now this.
So this looks a little more probably impressive. It's more, you know, beautiful in some sense. This is what you typically call miniatures game. So remember I was telling you where the board kind of interacts with you on that other game we were talking about with Alien Frontiers? Yeah. This doesn't really have a board. It's all the big pieces here are going to work with each other. This is based off Star Wars. So obviously a very popular IP, as they call it, or a license. And there's multiple miniatures games out there. There's monsters, there's robots, there's tanks and all that, but this is Star Wars. This is where you're the ships, you're fighting each other, you're either the Imperials or the Rebels. And it's really neat because you can actually take on that world and be a part, immerse yourself in that world and actually have combat with each other. And the way that works, like this guy's actually firing on that guy. So this is the range. So if he was out of range, he wouldn't be able to hit him, you know, that type of thing. And then these pieces here help you decide how you're going to move your pieces.
How many people can play this one?
This is usually a two-player, but then you can start to bring sets together, and they can have bigger battles and stuff like that. And there's actually different. This is Armada. There's also X-Wing, which are the smaller fighters. So anybody familiar with Star Wars, they have like little TIE fighters and the X-Wings and all that. So you can create fighters. And at our convention, we have people that make to-scale versions. So they're really big ships like that, and they'll mix them together. So you have the Armada and the X-Wing, and they'll have these big, like, three-day battles. So it's really neat.
So this is
to quickly, I want to chime in about our convention about, and one thing about it in terms of the miniatures, because I got to give credit to the original miniature board gamers, miniature players, and these are guys that go back way before Dungeons and Dragons, who would take miniature tanks and miniature World War II and World War I figures, paint them real small, and play. And they were really the original miniatures gamers. And we get some of those coming to KublaCon. We do run some of those games for those folks, and it's a great community of games.
Well, there's so many things that you have going. One event that I particularly like was the historian that you have, and she gives talks on all the different battles, the historical battles and everything. And I think that's really awesome for people that maybe want to take a break and they want something new. I like the Civil War. I'm very interested in the battles on that. Yeah. So it's nice that they have, and I know that if people go on the website, they can find all kinds of events. There's too many for us to go into. Yeah. And actually, I didn't get to ask, what is the top favorite game? Do you have one, or you wouldn't be able to pick?
Mine it's a game called Battlestar Galactica, and it's based off the reprint of the show Battlestar Galactica. It's one of my favorite games. It's really well done, and there's a traitor and all that stuff. It's really cool.
And that's my favorite.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really had fun. This was just very exciting. I think the event has a lot going for it, and I just want to thank you for being here. And you can go to the website and see a lot more information than we can give here. So thanks for watching.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
thanks for watching the show, and watch
again.
Yeah, this is really cool.